and welcome to the Holo Herald Podcast. I think this is episode number 7, I believe, and we are recording live from somewhere out there, our usual location. Thank you for joining us live if you're here right now. If you're not watching this live, we stream every Monday night from normally about at 7:30 or 8:30 is when we'll start, somewhere in between there, and we stream for about an hour. If you want to join us for the podcast, that's the best place to talk to us. That's the best place to have a little bit of back and forth, a discussion of sorts. And yeah, that's the best place. So let's get into it. Today I'm joined by two good friends. Go ahead and introduce yourselves, boys.
I'm Paul. I think everyone knows me pretty well. I've been on a majority of the podcasts now, I believe. Just taking a couple weeks off to get done with some work. But I'm glad to be back on. It seems like we have some really interesting topics this week. Some big news, especially in the emerging parts of MR technology. So it should be very fun to talk about and see everyone's thoughts on. So I'd love to hear from anyone out there who has any other thoughts on what we'll be talking about today.
And I'm joined by...
I'm Alex. You see me a lot more on the videos of the HoloLens we do, but I too am glad to be on the podcast tonight. Glad to be able to go over some fun topics and be able to talk to you guys.
Yep, and so it's just three of us today, a little bit of a trio we got, not too many of us. So I guess we could get right into the action. Last week we talked about a lot of subjects we bantered on a lot about, but I think we have a little bit more news sources to cover this week. Quite a bit has happened, actually. So, actually, let's just start off with the news source, and then we'll kind of get into some of the other things. What's one of the things you guys heard over the past week?
So a startup in Silicon Valley finished their third round of funding and raised about $13.7 million. And so what they are designing is lens technology for MR devices. So this company claims to have developed a new type of lens technology that'll make MR lenses much thinner, down to like the millimeters, whereas you look at like a HoloLens, it's like centimeters. They're kind of positioning themselves as being able to supply lenses for the future of MR devices. And one of their major selling points, they claim, is that they will be able to bring these to market in about 2019, so we'll start seeing much thinner devices come 2019 if companies buy into this technology that they're looking to sell here. So
wait, how much funding did they get? Did you say how much funding they got?
In this last round that just closed, they got 13.7. In Series B funding, they got 24 million, and Series A was not noted in the article, but if anyone wants to check it out, it's a company called Avegant, Avegant, and this is actually some pretty exciting stuff, considering this is mainly the technology that makes MR look amazing. Like, MR is based around the lenses and how accurate the lenses can refract the light entering your eye to make images appear.
Exactly. I'm always curious about this stuff. Did it say any notable backers like Google or anybody throwing anything?
Let me read through so there's a Chinese company, Hangzhou Lianlu, Intel, Applied Materials, and Stanford University's Virtual Human Interaction Lab. So
interesting. So is this U.S. based? Sorry, I walked away for a second while you were describing about it. I should have listened better.
Yes, this is a US based company. They're in Silicon Valley. I think the Chinese mobile internet company, the Chinese love investing in the United States. So that's
exactly that's what I was gonna say. I've noticed that a lot lately. Tons of big Chinese companies investing in small startups over in the U.S. That's actually a pretty primo market for startups to go. They'll even make whole events just to go out to China and to try to find rich investors and stuff because there's so much money over there right now. It's pretty insane. So is this a technology? When did they say we'll see this by?
2019. They said we're going to see light field displays in market much faster than people have anticipated in the next 12 to 18 months. So that would put us in 2018, but they think a consumer version could come out on the new HoloLens in 2019, which is when HoloLens 2 is expected to come out. So,
expected, or have they announced anything about when that's going to come out?
I don't believe it's been announced because I believe, remember, it was sent back. It was like postponed for a bit. So I think 2019 is the new speculative date.
That's still pretty soon. I mean, for a 3.0, I imagine something's. What do you think we'll see an announcement for like a new HoloLens and stuff?
I think we'd see it around this time next year.
Wasn't there a news article? There was a news article that said like some guy hinted at like expecting big things like this summer leading up to the Christmas season, right?
I think yes. But I think that was more with these $300 headsets that Microsoft's coming out with.
Oh yeah. Are those out yet? When did they come out again?
They are. I think they're shipping now. Let me look that up real quick. But one of the things that I saw with these lenses that I really want to talk about is that the company claims that they can render in holograms so close that you feel like you can touch them. Like, what the thumbnail for the article is a guy holding a hologram in his hand. So I want to hear what you guys think about that in the applications of something like that.
That's kind of an interesting idea because with the HoloLens, normally when you get too close to something, it kind of clips out. You kind of go through it. But you can get fairly close, wouldn't you say, Alex?
Yeah, I agree. That, and also the FOV kind of, if it's super big, the closer you get, the less of it you see, which could also be a big issue with hologram quality. But if they could figure something out here in the near future, that would be something I think that'd be pretty dang impressive.
And I think that is exactly what this company has done with this new lens technology. They've made the lenses a few millimeters thin, and I think that from what they say is you can get closer to a hologram now than ever before. And the way they do it is they actually blur out everything in the background besides the hologram once you start getting close. So you kind of get that like sensory perception, like where
a depth of field. You get a little bit of a depth of field.
Yeah, it forces you to focus on the hologram. So I think it'll be a very cool technology once we see it on some devices. I'm excited to see who decides to pay this company first.
Interesting. I'm surprised they've got so much funding and been around for so long, but yet we haven't seen any sort of acquisition or anything. If the technology is worth that much, you think Microsoft or Meta or Magic Leap or somebody would have stepped in and said, okay, we want this. I wonder if they have it patented too. That'd be kind of interesting to see, or if they just have, if it's just there first. Maybe they don't have it patented, because that's one of the problems with the field of the FOV is because the glass is actually quite thick on the HoloLens. You don't see it unless you look at it from the side at a certain angle, or at the bottom of it. The glass is actually a few panes, and it's quite thick each pane. So to have that wrap around your entire head is a lot heavier, and it's a lot more expensive to wrap that much glass around your head. Interesting. I mean, I think those are like the little nuances that are totally going to push the technology completely forward. Because I mean, the basis for the technology is there, and it's already quite impressive, but just these little features adding on. Like, I mean, I could remember the original iPhones and how easy the glass was to break. You remember, like, the iPod Touches, how easy the glass was to break, and then now you have stuff like Gorilla Glass and Sapphire Glass that's insane. People take knives to it and don't even see a slight amount of scratch. These are little nuances that'll take it forward. That's awesome. What have you been reading about, Alex?
I found this cool little tidbit about the Magic Leap. Like, it doesn't give off much, but in this article it talks about how Ricky Gervais recently was given a little sneak peek at it. And I guess what Magic Leap has been doing is they've been releasing them to actors and celebrities like Ricky Gervais. Even it says even Beyonce got to look at it, and a couple of athletes from the Golden State Warriors basketball team. Which I thought was kind of interesting that they're using that, and these actors and celebrities are tweeting and kind of talking. They're not very specific. I can't imagine they can be. They just talk about how cool and just like how Magic Leap will change the world. But one thing this article says is Magic Leap has raised $1.4 billion towards their project, and still the public has no idea what they're doing. But just like, if you think about $1.4 billion, like this company is technically a startup, and for a company like that to be raising that much money, just like really makes you wonder what they've got cooking down in the kitchen, you know?
Wait, is this Magic Leap that we're talking about?
Yeah, this is Magic Leap.
Oh, interesting. So Magic Leap came through. Sorry, I keep zoning out. So Magic Leap is giving their devices to people like Ricky Gervais and Beyonce?
Yeah, and then they're tweeting about it. It says here afterwards, after his little sneak peek, Ricky Gervais tweeted, "At Magic Leap, you are about to change the world. How does that feel?"
I don't. Why are they giving it to freaking Ricky Gervais and Beyonce? Why aren't they giving it to people like Sam Altman or these big tech giants in the field, or Linus Tech Tips or these kind of people that are in the field? I don't know what I think about that. Wait, so is there any pictures of it anywhere? Do we have any pictures of the Magic Leap yet?
Of the Magic Leap? No, it's just tweets from celebrities, which, I'm kind of with you there, Eric. Just like, why are they letting celebrities do this? I feel like they're doing this just because more people know them, and more people are going to like, oh, Ricky Gervais thought this was cool. It must be pretty dang incredible. Which is kind of a cheap publicity stunt, I feel like, that on Magic Leap's part,
I mean, so... Yeah, I still cannot find any pictures of devices or anything for the Magic Leap at all. Well, continue talking.
So yeah, I'm reading deeper in the article here, and they say that basically what they're doing is just trying to continue to build this hype up, and maybe try to form some content partnerships in the future. But also, Business Insider in February said that celebrity outreach by Magic Leap was more of a reflection of their CEO's desire to connect with celebrities than anything directly related to the company's business. So maybe this guy's going on an ego trip and just being like, oh, I want to connect with all these celebrities, rather than being like, I'm actually trying to put out a device here.
Exactly. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand. Let's say you're trying to market a toy or something like that, or something that's exciting. I mean, this technology is exciting. But something that's more user based. So something like a Tickle Me Elmo or a new Wii or a PlayStation. I could see giving those kind of things, but mixed reality, at least in this current stage that we've seen it, is very business oriented. It's not for users. It is, it's getting there, but at least at its core technology now, it's not for users. And to be handing it out to people like Ricky Gervais, no business startups or big companies like Samsung are going to be looking at Ricky Gervais and say, oh man, we need one of those. They're going to be looking at some of the leaders in the tech industry, like Samsung or like these other people. I don't know how I feel about that, actually. I should read the article. What else does the article say, or is that basically it?
That's basically it from what I can see. It seems like a big, gimmicky kind of article. And just the entire process is gimmicky, in my opinion. I'm sorry, Alex.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know, the whole thing's gimmicky, but the thing that really caught my eye was how it said that they have raised, the company Magic Leap has raised $1.4 billion.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's true. We one of our podcasts, I think it was one of our first ones, we talked about Magic Leap, and we went through all of the series of funding and how much money they've received over a time, and from such big names, huge names, like Google and Facebook are people that are backing Magic Leap. Now, Google and Facebook they know what they're doing, but they don't seem as someone that would be like, oh yeah, let's send this to Beyonce. What the heck does Beyonce have to do with mixed reality is beyond me. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I kind of feel like Magic Leap, this company, is kind of the whole, the teenager of all these companies, against Google and against Microsoft. They're just they're young, they're new, they got a lot of potential, but they're just kind of in a preppy kind of way trying to make a name for themselves. And this is the best option they thought they had.
So is this just trying to get their name out there? I'm trying to think from a marketing perspective, because not many people know what Magic Leap is unless you're part of the scene. I feel like they would want to have a product before they start getting their name out there, because people are going to go Google Magic Leap and they're going to find this super ambiguous video that has nothing to do with their actual product. So I mean, I'm not a marketing expert, and I guess we're probably just jealous because we didn't get one to play with. Because come on, we're like leading sources. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I mean, Linus Tech Tips is a great example, or Unbox Therapy is even closer related to that kind of stuff. Or maybe their choice of mainstream media is kind of what's kind of bummed me out. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. What do you think, Paul?
I don't even think, like, the fact that they would choose these people, like Ricky Gervais and Beyonce, their fan bases are not the kind of people who will be getting these devices first. You'll see more people who, like you said, would be following people like Sam Altman, people like that, who they're going to be in on the forefront of the technologies and testing them out before your average consumer gets their hand on them. Just kind of like similar to a HoloLens. So I don't understand where the appeal comes in with, like, saying, oh yeah, here, Beyonce, because your fans totally care about this. I just don't get it. Where they're coming from in terms of what does this mean for your company in terms of, because you're not going to have a product for consumers for quite a while if we're using other companies as a standard of where MR technology is right now. I mean, when you look at Meta, when you look at HoloLens, when you look at those, I forget the other company that has glasses out now. All these companies, they're marketing to businesses. They're not marketing to your average consumer. And Magic Leap doesn't even have a product yet. And they're marketing to average consumers is what it seems like. Or they're marketing their name. And
exactly.
Like, a name is worth a lot of money. But if the name isn't selling anything, it's worth nothing. Like, all the material Magic Leap has put out there means nothing to me in terms of this is what the company is actually capable of doing. Like, oh, you hired a good graphic designer to do to edit some videos
mock-ups
together. Yeah. So I don't know.
No, exactly. Like, we have a whole podcast talking about Magic Leap, and we basically, for if you guys don't want to go back and listen to that podcast, basically our consensus was we just want to see what they have. That's all we really care about. We don't care about their name. We don't care about their funding. We don't care about who's funding them. We don't care about who the heck is wearing their device. We don't care for future device. We want to see the device. That's what's going to speak to us, at least as bigger users, as mixed reality enthusiasts. We care about the device. We could care less about who their CEO is. We care about who's working on it. We want to see a device, and it's been years. The company's not new. Magic Leap's been around since like 2012 or something. They're not a new company by any means. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just sick of all the Magic Leap hype. I think it's really dangerous if they haven't learned anything from games or like Xbox 360. The Xbox One is a perfect example. Xbox One was a lot of hype, and I love the Xbox One, don't get me wrong. The Xbox was a lot of hype, and then it just fell flat because there was so much hype about it, or same with a lot of emerging technologies, and dwindling us on about 2 years now of just hype about your name and random mock-ups and Ricky Gervais tweets. That's not going to pull us in there. I mean, I just want to see something, What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree with you, Eric, there. Like, with all this hype, like, that's dangerous. Like, we think of the time it took Microsoft to release the Xbox 360, and then how so many years after they released the Xbox One. Like, that took, like, a decade. And then now, only a few years after the Xbox One release, we're hearing about Project Scorpio.
They're all ready to move on to something else because the one didn't do as well as they're expecting, And that, I think that has to play with, like, technologies emerging into itself. But how many video games can you... I mean, I could name off, like, 10 video games right now. And I know video games are video games. It's a different market. It's a different idea altogether. But, it's still marketing. It's still getting people excited for things and then not being able to deliver. But one thing I'll say Magic Leap has going for them is they haven't made a lot of promises. If you go look at Magic Leap, they don't have, like, any promises. They haven't even said what they want to do. They haven't even said their goal. Like, we're making... Like, I could understand this. If they came out and they said, we're building a mixed reality device for the user. We're building a mixed reality device for everyday person to use every day. I could understand why they're giving it to Ricky Gervais, why they're giving it to Beyonce. But they haven't even said what their goal is, you know? Joe just said that they should give it to Robert Sklobe and not Scoble. And that's totally right. They need to be giving to these leaders, to these thought experts or these technology experts, you know, or a blogger, you know, or Wired, or even mainstream media. They could even give it to mainstream media for all I care, as long as it's like Wired or Tech Insider or
CNET.
I don't know, CNET, freaking CNET. You know, you hit the hit. I mean, I don't know. Magic Leap. I get riled up when I talk about Magic Leap a little bit, just because I want to see something. I hate all this hype, and there's a lot of Magic Leap defenders out there, isn't there, guys?
Yeah, there are. Surprisingly, they're willing to back something that nobody knows anything about.
Yeah, I think it's mostly just interesting how they've kept up this hype train with just releasing these videos that we've seen time and time again. Companies release these videos and then the final product doesn't even match the video. I mean, a very good graphic designer could create a video like that, and then when the actual device comes out, it could fall vastly short. The video I'm commenting on in specific is the one where they're like in that school's gymnasium and the whale jumps out of the floor. Like,
exactly, and all the kids start clapping even though nobody's wearing a device. Me and Paul have a pet peeve because we like startups, and we like emerging technologies, and we like disrupting technologies or people that come in to do cool things, but there's this weird trend that's come about in the past few years where you hear of a cool startup, or you don't know what a startup is, but they've received a lot of funding and they've received a lot of publicity, and you go to their site and you go and you check it out, and it's just so ambiguous. It's like, we are people that do things. And it's like, what? Why are you getting millions and millions of dollars in funding for being a person that does things? Everybody does this. Haven't you noticed this, Paul?
yeah, there's an unhealthy amount of ambiguous startups out there. These companies, they start up and they raise millions of dollars, and then you go look at, okay, so what exactly are they offering? And either the idea isn't well fleshed out, or they don't even let you know what the idea is. And I guess the ones that don't have well fleshed out ideas are better than the ones that don't technically have ideas at all. But I would put Magic Leap in that basket of a non-well fleshed out idea. Like, I know we've seen all this like press and stuff, but until they have an actual device that they're sending out to people, and I'm not saying they send it out to everyone like Microsoft did, but just let some big tech websites, big tech magazines have it, I don't see them as a legitimate, regardless of the amount of funding they've had, I don't see them as a legitimate company until they give us something to look at and that people can start reporting on, like, realistically, without this speculative, oh, they just raised this much money, what does this mean? Or, oh, we gave it to Ricky Gervais, who gets paid to say random shit on Twitter.
Exactly.
Give it to someone who's not getting paid, is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Someone that cares about technology. Hint, hint, us. We would love a Magic Leap. If the Magic Leap gods are out there listening, please, for the love of God, we want. Okay, I'm going to post this link in chat. This is to their blog post from January 2017. I think we might have touched on this on our last podcast. I don't quite remember, but I'll post it here. This is kind of like, they have a blog on their site that they update once every 6 months, maybe, that kind of just is... This is a little bit of an example of a an ambiguous update where the whole article sums up to we're getting there, or like things are happening. It's like, cool, what things are happening? So they say right here, our first product is coming. My office in our new building is right next to a small model home we built, right smack in the middle of everything. A home where we can test the Magic Leap will fit into your life each day. We have a really big space, one where spaceships can exist at full scale. And then he goes on and talks about all this random stuff, blah, blah, blah. Our PEQ system, which is their product equivalent, are in both hardware and software agile build cycles, so we can test and iterate. Our team, our friends, and development partners can experience each day, and you will too experience. Basically, that's the whole article. I mean, basically, that's all you really need out of that article. Then he goes into a bunch of stuff like, I think a lot about our inner child, and then he talks about Magic Leap is for the dreamer, the artist, the wide-eyed kid within all of us. But what we are building is no longer just a dream. It is very real, and we are way past the is it possible stage. You better be past the is it possible stage. Microsoft's been past that stage for 2 years now. I don't know. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on and on. It's all theory, you know. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. Am I being too harsh on it, guys? Or if I'm just
from
done.
that. It seems like there was a couple nuggets of good information there. I know we do know that they have a testable device and they have testable software now. But then you got the classic startup garbage where it's like, oh yeah, we're innovators and all this stuff. Prove it. Let's see where the rubber hits the road, in my opinion, with all this stuff. If you do have a testable model, why can't the public see of like at least real footage of it instead of these stupid renderings showing like rooms filled with this stuff and people reacting even though those people can't see what's in that room?
Exactly. It's like, how's that technology going to work? It's kind of, that was one of our biggest beefs with mixed reality in the it's one of the biggest beefs with mixed reality in the beginning, was a lot of it, especially from Meta did a pretty good job and Microsoft did a pretty good job, but there were some other pseudo companies that didn't really go anywhere. They came in and they just made their own renders of showing how cool technology was and how cool it was. And then in the little corner, or apps for the HoloLens. So a lot of apps for the HoloLens would do this. Like 50% of the video would be actually shot through the HoloLens, and then the other 50% would be their cool renders of what they wanted to do. And it's like, come on, that's not even, but they sold it as that's what it's going to be like, which makes sense. I mean, it's marketing, you gotta amp it up a little bit, but I mean, come on, you're not fooling anybody. So here you go. Here's what I'm talking about. This is the very end of the article when he kind of, after he sums up some stuff, he says, Magic Leap is for the kid in you, the one who dreamed big dreams, the one who still imagines. It is also for the adult, the practical one who needs to get through life, who needs to do more with less. You are both at once, creative and practical. So are we. It's like, I don't give a crap about that. You know, maybe I'm crazy, but what does that even mean? That doesn't tell me anything about the device. That doesn't say, sorry, I'm fed up. I'm ranting now, but
just breathe, Eric. I apologize for sharing that article.
No, I think it's important to talk about because there is a large segment of the community who really believes that Magic Leap will blow everyone out of the water. And
yeah, that's very true.
I'm a skeptic until I see something that really shows me that's not just a rendering, because every company is guilty of this. Every tech company that has software to put out there is guilty of these renderings. Microsoft did it with the HoloLens and still continues to do it sometimes. They've been doing it with these $300 headsets, and I opened up the Windows Holographics Studio today, and like, it's nice, but it's not like what they showed in the videos for a lot of things. I would say it's very similar to a HoloLens experience. Just looking at my laptop screen, of course, I don't have the $300 device. But just looking at how it was rendered on my computer, it's similar, but it's not to the point where they said it would be. And I think a lot of companies are guilty of this, and it needs to be addressed when it comes up.
Yeah, well, because it's kind of false advertising to an extent. You know, there's a point where it's like, this is what we want. This is cool technology. This is what we want. This is what we want it to be like. This is like the feeling that we're trying to convey. And then there's the point where it's like, this is what you're going to get. You know, and they're two different things, and they kind of blur the line between the two sometimes with mixed reality, which is a bummer. You know. I guess that's where our channel kind of fits in, though, is kind of to be like, I remember Hollow Anatomy was kind of a culprit of this, to say, they showed what the device would do, and then Microsoft does it too. You're exactly right, Paul. Everybody does it, but at least that's where we fit in. You can actually see what the app actually looks like and what it actually does, and not their marketers' opinions of it. That's a good place we fitted.
And also not hooked up through that spectator view, which will show, like, if you have a 4K camera, you can see the holograms and stuff in 4K, which is completely unrealistic at this point. And when you have technology like that and you're using it to market your device, you're kind of deceiving everyone because your device doesn't shoot in that resolution. And I understand why they do it, because it would look poopy if everyone saw them in 720 and they have all these like 1080p screens even on their televisions and things like that. 720 just doesn't add up, but that's what the device does at this point for a good reason. But
you're exactly right.
It's pretty fake to do it and say this is what our device can do or will be able to do. I think at this point you should be saying this is what our device can currently do. And you're exactly right in that is where our channel fits in, is we actually show what the HoloLens can actually do right now and not what it will be able to do via renderings.
Exactly. And that's what's great. We like when software developers reach out to us and say, hey, here's an app we built, show it, because that's them that's them proving like, hey, our app is cool, we want you to see how cool it is, and we want you to show it off and see how cool it is. That's like their faith. But we go on to some apps that don't reach out to us, and obviously granted everybody doesn't know about us or care about us in any aspect, and you see the probably one of the biggest culprits of this is Holo Translate, not to name drop or anything like that, but we tried to make a video of Holo Translate, didn't we, Alex?
Yeah, we did. And I spent about a day with 4 different languages trying to get it to scan. And either I'm disabled in some way or the app just didn't work, because I didn't just hold the book in front of it and it came back with an error, and I'm like, oh, doesn't work. I bought different types of books with different types of font sizes. I bought magazines. I tried putting stuff up on a computer screen. I tried writing stuff up on the whiteboard, and it came back every time with an error. And even in the reviews, I was reading the reviews. There are 2 of them, and both say the same thing basically. Really cool idea, always comes back with an error.
Which is too bad, because exactly, that is an awesome idea. That's you see HoloLens, that's one of the most practical applications for such a device.
Yeah, exactly.
Is to have translate. And granted, it's just some small developer. This isn't a studio, but this is an example of where it's cool idea. And I see a lot of startups right now, like mixed reality startups, and people that develop apps for the HoloLens kind of going down this route of selling people on this idea and then not being able to deliver, which we'll see. I don't know. We'll have to see, Hopefully apps will blow our minds. I can't wait to see some bigger studios like Asobo Studios get behind apps and stuff, to build really cool things like Fragments and really cool things like RoboRaid and different apps like that. I know. What do you think, Paul, of smaller studios versus bigger studios?
I think it'll be, in terms of studios, I don't know if really we need studios at this point. I think a really cool thing would be to see Rolls-Royce or GE Aviation build out some jet engines and actually be able to play around, just give them to us to test out, the public. I'm saying us, I mean the public. And just letting us play around with a GE jet engine or a Rolls-Royce jet engine. I think that would be amazing. So these big companies coming out and being so we put in the money into rendering out our engines or our cars or our just locomotives, anything really huge that people, engineers at their company actually use. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. But I think also at this point, small developers are very, very important to the MR and how it will be in the future. I don't think big developers will get involved just yet, as there's not a really large upside to it yet until a lot more people get the device. I think you'll see a lot of release titles, and I say release titles with quotation marks, not saying there'll be games or anything, but just these big companies, these big dev studios coming out and being okay, you're about to go live with this to the public, let's get a big app so we have that advantage that we developed for this first. Even though I think at this point small developers are going to be the lifeblood of these MR devices to make sure they don't die out before we get to that point.
Yeah, Paul, I really like your comment because what Eric said, he was talking about like game developers and how it'd be so cool to see more and more games like Robo Raid or Fragments. And then you kind of brought up like companies, manufacturing companies, like Boeing or like you said Rolls Royce or Audi, like big companies like that. The thing I like is the versatility of the HoloLens and the unlimited applications. Like if you think like the Xbox or PS3, you definitely only think about video game developers. Like you couldn't say, oh, what if Rolls Royce started developing for the Xbox 360?
It's a very, very good point. Mixed reality and HoloLens specifically have a little niche market that they can fit into where they can bridge this gap between manufacturers and users, whereas people like Xbox 360 and PlayStation 4, they can't, or I mean Xbox and PlayStation, Rolls-Royce or Boeing won't come in and say, hey, here's a game for that. There's not really that much additive. I mean, obviously people like Burger King and McDonald's have come in and made games, but not your everyday service. But I mean, how cool would that be to drop a Rolls Royce in your room, And that's not an experience you're going to get on, Xbox unless you're playing Forza and there happens to be a Rolls Royce, some little niche things, but not made by the developers at Rolls Royce. It's pretty cool. So, anyways, real quick, in our chat, we have Wayward Productions and Joe Nickens. He says, I see you looked into the law officials truly using HoloLens on another system. I don't know what that means. Go ahead and clarify, Wayward. And Joe was talking about the Magic Leap, the leaked pictures of Magic Leap, and it's like the guy wearing a huge backpack and a set, right? You guys remember that back in the day a little while ago?
Yeah, I do remember that.
What do you think about that? What do you think about a mixed reality device where you'd wear something? Like a maybe a wire that goes down and goes into your pocket and connects to your phone and uses some of the power from your phone, or a backpack or something like that. Do you think that fits into a market, or do you think that fits into your definition of mixed reality devices, or what do you guys think?
I personally like just how easy it is to take the HoloLens and put it on my head and use it like that. But if I have to strap myself in or am limited to a cable, that turns me off a little bit, because I remember in those leaked pictures, like that backpack looks pretty dang cumbersome. Like it'd get pretty heavy to haul around, because even with the HoloLens, like it kind of hurts your nose after a little bit. But a backpack with all sorts of technology, just like I'm not a fan. I don't really like it.
What if the backpack made your experience like 10 times better? Do you think it'd still be worth it?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Because with that, we're going to have added processor power, which means we're going to have probably a wider field of view, better battery life, better graphics, and better response time and better mapping. Do you think that's worth a backpack, or do you think you're pretty content with the experience as it is?
I think that right now, technology in MR, just like where we were talking about this Avigant company coming out with these lenses, is they're moving to slimmer tech. They're not looking for these backpacks. They're looking for, how can we fit this tech into the smallest possible device? And it's like Apple, they claim they want to replace the iPhone with a AR/MR device in the future, and their experience in miniaturization, such as with like what they did with the Apple Watch and things like that, that is going to pay them spades when developing MR devices that work well and are beautiful. People aren't going to want this bulky technology. It's going to be like the difference we see with PCs, where you have these enthusiast gaming PCs that cost thousands of dollars and they're bulky and you can't take them everywhere with you. And then you have these light, beautiful notebooks that you can take everywhere with you and they get the job done. And you're going to see some people want the backpack experience, and those people are going to be using the MR device for a lot. Then you're going to want people who just have to go to work every day, who are going to want like these light glasses that they can just throw on when they wake up and they have an MR experience all day long.
Yeah, and so like different strokes for different folks. We normally get to that point of when we discuss different devices, and we always come to that conclusion. There's going to be different devices for different purposes. An everyday lightweight one, but maybe at work you need to do some heavy stuff, so you use a beefier computer. Just equivalent of everyday usage as you use it, just a different medium for that technology. All right, let's read over some comments real quick. The backpack concept could have the processing power to incorporate into a haptic device. That's interesting. Whenever we do the podcast, people always ask about haptic feedback or like a vest where you can feel stuff, or gloves, better controllers. That's an interesting topic, actually. Oh, no. Sorry. Haptics with HoloLens. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's one of the major things that holds the HoloLens back at this point, is that there isn't haptic feedback. And yes, the gestures are reliable if you do them correctly. A lot of
Hold
people...
on, Paul. I'm going to stop you real quick right there. Austin just made a good question. He asked, what does haptic mean? We should probably go over that real quick. Haptic means feeling, like sensory feeling. So let's say I go to pick something up. There'd be a little bit of weight to it. Or I go to squish a ball. Like, let's say in mixed reality, you would go and you grab a hologram ball. If you do it now, your hand's just going to go right through it. There's no substance. There's no nothing there. But let's say you went to squeeze it and there would be a little bit of feedback. You'd feel a little bit of squishiness to it. You know what I mean? Is that a good way to explain it? Or do you have a better way to explain it, you think?
Yeah, I think it would just be getting a sensation of touch for something that doesn't provide sensation. So I guess the biggest example of this we have right now is on your phone, on like an Android phone, when you click, so on like a Galaxy, when you click one of the buttons that's not the home button, like the back button, if you have it on, your phone will vibrate for you. And I'd say that's haptic feedback in terms of your phone.
Probably the best example of it is on the new MacBooks, the Force Touch. When you go and you click, it's not an actual click anymore. It's a little vibration inside of the touch plate that's right there, right? So that's probably the best example. Okay, continuing on. Does that have a place in mixed reality?
Yes, definitely. It would make the experience so much better, and especially for people who are going to use this for work. Knowing that you're actually affecting something, I think would be the biggest just like savior to people who are doing like precise work, who will be using an MR application. So say you are working on a jet engine and you need to know exactly how much to tighten this bolt, or else it means like an entire plane of people could die. Well, haptic feedback could really help you in terms of, all right, press it one more time, and then if it increases, as it increases, you know you've gone too far, or you know you need to go more. So stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, and we there was an interesting me and Paul, we got to go out and try something called the Da Vinci. What was it called again?
It's like the Da Vinci. I'll look it up, but you can talk about it while I'm looking it up.
So it's basically like a multi-million-dollar device to help surgeons perform surgery. And eventually in the future it'll be replaced by robots and it'll be the exact same thing. But basically you put your hands in these little clips and these little fingers. Paul will post a picture to it or an article about it in the chat. But you put your hands like these little gloves or these mini pincers, basically just your two fingers, like pretending you're pinching something or clicking something. You put it in there, and then you can move these little arms that have little clippers, and it's so hard to explain without actually being there. Anyways, it's a multi-million-dollar device to perform surgery, but the one thing I was surprised about it is it had no haptic feedback. So let's say you're going and they're performing surgery, and you could do very intricate details like tying someone's vein into a knot, or what the exercise they had there was you had a little rubber band, a miniature rubber band that you would try to grab and stretch and pull apart and place on something. But so when you grab the rubber band and you go and you pull it and you stretch it apart, you don't feel anything. There's no haptic feedback, and I was very surprised that there was no haptic feedback, because I thought if you're dealing with someone's internal organs, you think you're going to want to, know if you're knocking something around too hard or not. You didn't feel any resistance. But the expert there, he told us, he says, actually doctors are not interested in haptic feedback. He says they've done the surgeries long enough that they know and they can tell and stuff that it's just second nature to them, and it just gets in the way at that point, and it actually causes, they say that's one of the things that causes more deaths in surgeries, is the fact that there's resistance, and there's the fact that you're too scared to pull certain things. I don't know. It was a very interesting discussion, but if there was no haptic feedback and it's that kind of device, I think it'll be quite a while until we see haptic feedback meet mixed reality or something close to it, or VR for that matter. What do you think, Alex?
We've been talking about haptic feedback with tangible objects, And like with holograms, like they're just, like they're projections that you can see. And I've been trying to think and kind of try to bend reality, and I can't imagine how you could have like this projection give you haptic feedback. Like you can feel the ball squishing. Just like I don't know. I'm just kind of having a hard time wrapping my mind around haptic feedback with MR or AR.
Exactly. And I think it's futuristic, but I think I definitely see it coming. It's got potential. It'll be there. I think it'll be a little while, but I think it's on the back burner right now. But I'm excited for haptic feedback or of sorts. And yes. So what are some of the other news articles we brought that we kind of pushed to the side for half a moment?
Warner Brothers patented their MR experience just recently. So I guess what they're thinking is going to happen is they're going to create these experiences with movies where you can experience the movie either in, I think they set it up for VR, AR, and MR, and I know we've seen this kind of merging of the two words AR, MR, and I think we need to see those separated again, but this experience, they claim, will cover all three of those features. So I just wondered what you guys wanted to think about that in terms of now we see this huge entertainment company coming out and patenting an actual like experience that they'll use in future movies. So is that something you guys would attend, like a movie in MR or VR?
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe, okay, so we're pretty big film buffs here at the Holo Herald. Like we make our own videos. We have our own little like side channel where we make, our own films, and we do film festivals and stuff like that. And what I think is interesting about this is I'm a fan of 3D. I like 3D movies. I love that depth that you can get with 3D movies that you can't get with anything else. And people says it dims the picture, but the richer color field, because you can actually get the darkness of the contrast of everything. I love 3D, especially when it's real 3D, like Mad Max 3D, and not just crappy 3D. But one thing we've noticed is consumers and people are very apprehensive to new movie, film, cinema experiences, especially in the movie theater, not much has changed in the past 100 years besides the switch from film to digital. That is really one of the only 3D's been there since forever, so that's not even a new advancement. So, basically the biggest advancement we've seen in film is the switch from digital to film. What do you think, Alex?
I agree, just like we go from film to digital, I feel like there has to be, another level that film can go. And I think that this, the augmented reality is the direction that it could go. I actually found, I shared it. I found an article talking about how Ridley Scott, the director of like Alien and Blade Runner and Black Hawk Down, recently released or, has kind of started a virtual reality division with his through his film company Ridley Scott Associates, and how they're going to try to create kind of a virtual reality showing of Alien Covenant, which is going to be releasing here pretty soon. So I think it'd be really cool just to be able to kind of get sucked into a film experience like this at a whole nother level, be able to look around. Not just look at a screen, but be able to look around you, behind you, to the left and to the right, and be able to see aliens, for example, something like that. I remember at Universal Studios, there's this King Kong ride where the bus kind of drives through this tunnel, and all the walls of this tunnel is a 3D screen, and like the bus locks into place. And basically it takes you for a ride and shows you King Kong fighting these enormous dinosaurs, and like the bus gets thrown through the trees, and like King Kong picks up the bus and like with everybody in it and throws it, and it feels like you're moving. It was incredible. It was an incredible experience. Like I went on this ride years and years ago, but I remember it to this day just because it was so insanely immersive and so cool. And if something like this could be more reachable, could be easier for the public to get to, I think this would be an unprecedented leap in the film industry.
No,
Well, I guess the thing of... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask him, how much would you be willing to pay for something like that?
That's kind of where I was getting at, too. Along the lines of how much would you be willing to pay for an experience like that is, are theaters going to be willing to... Is this going to be like a more... Do you guys think this is going to be more of a roadshow thing? Like a one theater in town has it, or maybe like one theater in Utah has it, or someone's just traveling through? Or do you think this is going to be like every theater is going to start having VR or MR or whatever the experience of choice happens to be? You think it's going to... You get to take over? By the way, to answer your question, how much I would pay for it, probably still like $10 to $12, right around the same price of a movie. I don't know if I'd be willing to pay too much more.
Then I'm not sure if it would be truly viable. Alex also shared an interesting article talking about how people wrongly characterize VR sometimes as 360 videos. And that's basically what these movies would be at this point, would be 360 video. And some guy in the article said 90 seconds, just splicing together 90 seconds of 3D video costs like $10,000, I think he said. So these videos...
No way.
These videos are very, very expensive to make. So I don't think you'd be getting into something like this for $10. unless they gave it to everyone. Every theater.
Exactly. Interesting. I mean, you'd have to have the devices. You'd have to have the selection things. And we kind of already have those, like you said, the universal experience. Or if you go to any, like certain IMAX theaters have like the Globe theaters and stuff. So you have the experiences. But I don't know if I see anything changing true film or true cinema, especially mixed reality. I think it could maybe play a role, but I don't know. There's something innate about like film and cinema and going to the movie theater that people just don't want to change. They're very resistant to change. Even 3D, people would lose their crap if a movie only came out in 3D, or movies would never only come out in 3D because people would lose their crap. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's one market that will not be tapped as much. Now, home entertainment, I think, could totally be changed. Maybe home movies or, forms of entertainment at home. I think those could totally be changed by VR and MR. And they already have. I mean, YouTube has gone as far to have 360 uploads be on their channel. You know what I mean? I'm not on their channel, be on their platform. Like right now, if we had a 360 camera, we don't even need that. We could upload a 360 video if we wanted to right now, but I mean, we don't. But I don't know. I don't know where I really see it fits into cinema, really. But yeah, do you guys like 3D?
I really like the 3D experience. I just think one of the major things why some people may not like it is also, I feel like when I get out of a 3D movie, my eyes are tired, which I know is weird to say, but it's true. And I don't know if anyone else has ever felt this, but that might be another one of the things holding it back from being like a major experience, because I love seeing movies in 3D, especially if it's like a really good movie, like you said, Mad Max, or I even like Star Wars sometimes in 3D. Like those are good movies in 3D.
Yeah, we really appreciate. I mean, I love 3D. I even bought a 3D TV, which nobody buys 3D TVs, and it's expensive. The reason your eyes get tired, to answer that question real quick, is because they use active 3D most of the times. I mean, nor passive. I can't remember which one. But what it does is it's giving two different depths to your eyes, basically, and it's switching back and forth, so your eyes aren't completely in sync like they normally would be, and that tires out your eyes quite a bit. So how important do you think you talked about distinguishing names. How important do you think it is for people to understand the difference between AR, MR, and VR as terminology and as technologies? Because most people think those are basically interchangeable words at this point in time. How important do you guys think it is for people to understand? Sorry, go ahead.
I've been with the Holo Herald for a few months now, and I've tried researching and stuff and looking at different articles and definitions, and I still, me personally, don't have a definitive definition of VR, AR, or MR. I have a basic understanding, but a really in-depth idea of it, I don't have. So I feel like maybe with the general public, I don't think it'll really matter.
Interesting. Interesting. What about you, Paul?
If I'm a company in this in one of these sectors, I want to differentiate myself as much as possible. Like, if I'm an MR device, I don't want to be lumped into the same group as VR devices, because I am going after a different market where VR is kind of like this niche, and MR has such a more potential for a broader appeal. So I think we do need to really create a vast distinction between the names and really nail down this is why they're different, and this is why one is good for this is why one is better for this, stuff like that.
So yeah, I think a good comparison to make would probably be between instead of AR, VR, MR is probably pretty confusing, but a good comparison is probably the difference between phone, tablet, and computer or something like that. I mean, that's essentially how different they are. I know those are just sizes, but back in the day, people probably didn't know the difference between a tablet and a phone because they look very similar and they act very similar. That could probably be a comparison between AR and MR. Phones and tablets sometimes are interchangeable with their sizes, but yet we still need this distinction between the two, or else you're going to end up being confused and not getting the right product or not understanding the conversation correctly. And then there's VR, which would be a computer, which everybody basically understands the VR mentality. But then you have those weird pseudo things that come in, like the phablets and stuff like that. And that's where it gets complicated, where I don't think terminology is as important, but I think it plays a role, definitely. Do you think it's important for consumers to understand the difference, or mostly just for businesses?
I think it's mostly just important for businesses in terms of establishing we are an MR company versus we are a VR company. As a consumer, I don't think it really matters. You should know what you're getting into. But that's the company's responsibility to sell it to you in the way that it makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay. So we're going to start wrapping up here pretty soon. So thank you guys for joining us, but we'll give you guys a little bit of a tidbit. So Paul, guess what? We went out and we tried shooting with the HoloLens.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So for people that are listening to the uploaded version, or for people that are still alive right now, those are our core fans, and they can totally know what's up and what's down and coming. So Alex, go ahead and tell Paul what our experiences were shooting with the HoloLens.
So it was pretty incredible, actually, and a lot of fun just to be able to put up a mime in front of the targets and to shoot at it. The only downside was no matter how many AR-15 rounds I plugged into it, it still kept dancing. However, things like the shockwave or the noise, did not mess with the HoloLens or the quality of the recording and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I noticed is with aiming, with one eye closed, that kind of changes the quality and fidelity of the hologram. But I noticed when I was using a red dot sight, actually looking through the red dot sight, the hologram quality actually looked better.
Interesting.
Because we were recording while we were doing this, but I noticed that through a red dot sight, the hologram looked a lot crisper compared to the just kind of at the border of the red dot sight. I could still see the hologram on the outside, and it just looked a lot more crisper through the sight, which I thought was very, very peculiar. The only downside was that it didn't show up in the video playback.
Huh.
Like when we went back and we watched what we'd recorded, the hologram still would pop up in front of the gun.
You know how sometimes when we're watching our videos, someone will move their hand to click at something, and their hand will be behind the hologram?
Yeah.
And that's how the experience. That's how it kind of was for shooting with it too. But it was pretty crazy with shooting with the. Oh my God, he actually did it. You're a crazy mother effer. You know that, Austin. You guys done? Guess what Austin just picked? We're not done yet. Guess what Austin just did? So, since this is an audio podcast, Austin just walked in with a cool little toy. Do you want to come here? Come tell people what you just got and tell them your thought process about it.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. First we just bought 10 cheeseburgers, and And then we went to Best Buy, and I picked myself up a little fun thing called the Google Home, and I'm excited. I know Eric's family, they have one, and Eric says they use it every day, so I want to try it out in my home and see what happens. And how's your Echo? Like, Paul, how do you like yours?
I love my Echo. I think it's one of my best tech purchases so far this year. I don't know, I find that I use her a lot I call her her. Yeah, you can tell I've become attached to a piece of technology by now. But yeah, I use it every day for, like...
What do you use it for?
Getting the news, the weather. I have it linked up to my phone, so I can just say, hey, I need this added to my list. So, like, I need to pick up some eggs from the grocery store tomorrow. So when I got home, I asked her to add some eggs to my grocery list and other things, and she'll remind me of meetings I have. I have it linked up to my calendar. So, like, I had to get on for the podcast, and a little ding went off, and she was like, the podcast is starting in 30 minutes, in 15 minutes. So, yeah, just a very useful, like, personal assistant almost.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm excited.
Yeah, there's a lot of little gadgets you can install for them, which make them extremely useful.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, you guys have an excellent podcast. Thanks for letting me hop in for a second.
Thanks for joining.
That was our cameo by Austin Mother Effing Swainston. The one, the only. He always manages to make it into one of our productions, no matter what it is. Did you guys see that video recently where he edited himself into the middle of the video? He just said, like,
I'm such a prideful...
You're watching the video, and all of a sudden, Austin just pops in the middle of the video. It's like, oh, hello, I didn't know you were here. And he's like, hello, I am Austin. It's like, come on, dude, come on. Don't you think you get enough screen time already? You're in every freaking video. So, actually, I was talking to was the Google Home out when you picked up your Echo, Paul?
Yes, it was. So both of them were out at the same time, and the reason I chose the Echo is more just I like how they priced it, and I do like Amazon as a company. I didn't really do like the ecosystem thing that I know a lot of people really tie into it. I also thought and read that the speakers on the Echo were better, and I was looking for a good like Bluetooth speaker at the same time, which she does both, so it was kind of perfect for me. And I know like the Google Home sounds good, but I think the Echo sounds just a little bit better.
That's interesting. Yeah, it'd be actually fun to do a comparison. If you ever come down, we should totally do a comparison video. That'd be actually really good. At least for our uses. Well, we already have like a Chromecast here. We already have some other Google stuff like Eric uses a Pixel, and I don't know. We kind of have a Google ecosystem going on in the office, so I don't know. We were talking about it in Slack today. I basically said they're basically the exact same device, just like what kind of ecosystem do you want to branch out with in the future is kind of how you should decide, you know. Anyways, so it looks like we've lost most of our viewers. It's probably when Austin came on. They heard Austin's voice and they decided to bail. So, any last words, boys? We have so much news we didn't cover, but we'll get to it in the next podcast. There's so much to talk about.
Yep.
Kind of got distracted, but that's what the next podcast is for. Any closing words, boys?
No, not really. Just thanks for watching. We really appreciate all of your viewership. It helps a lot. Trust us. You guys are the reason we keep doing this. So thank you.
Yeah, just I want to give a big thanks to all of our supporters. It really means a lot to see people like take the time to listen to us. You know, it's like a bit of an ego boost. You know, it kind of helps bring our moods up and motivates us. And you know, just like we owe it all to you guys. You know, we do this because of you, and you know, we thank you for your time and your support. We love you guys.
Oh, that's why we have Alex be the face of the Holo Herald. He's very touching. Anyways, thanks for your AdSense, and no, I'm just kidding. We make nothing off of AdSense. That doesn't even compare. But anyways, we don't make anything off of doing anything actually, besides just doing it. So, thanks again for joining us for the 7th edition of the Holo Herald Podcast. And we will be streaming live again next week at around 7:30 Monday night. Be there, be square. If you guys thought anything, hit us up at Twitter at the Holo Herald. And this has been the Holo Herald Podcast. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for watching.